Buying a home with a 10K deposit. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee and I thought we'd check out this article from Yahoo Finance today because, well, a Gen Zer, typical Gen Zer, managed to buy a home with only a $10,000 deposit, which is quite achievable. 10 grand, you should be able to squirrel that together reasonably quick if you live a very tight and unexciting lifestyle. So I thought it'd be interesting to see how she did it and what's special about it, because 10 grand, it'd have to be a government supported one or a government guaranteed, wouldn't it? For 10 grand, nothing. So, how a young Aussie bought a home with just a 10K deposit. Typical Gen Z prioritized lifestyle. Brooke hadn't been saving for a property, but changed her mindset when she'd lost her rental property. Well, can you blame her? I was driving into the city today and drove past, what was it? Musgrave Park? Tents everywhere. What's going on? A 25-year-old Australian woman has bought a home with just a $10,000 deposit after being kicked out of her rental and is now paying less than she did as a tenant. She was paying $1,058. What? With her partner. Oh, I mean, that's just... With a three-bedroom apartment. Partner and his brother. Okay, so well, there were three of them. So they're each paying, what, $350 a week? Maybe four, yeah. In a three-bedroom apartment in a good area when her landlord decided to sell. Describing herself as a typical Gen Z of the Uber Eats and subscriptions crowd. So she'd be a younger millennial. I'm a geriatric millennial. Yeah, right at the early 80s. And I think there's a big difference, honestly, because my generation, or my micro generation, we still had an analog childhood. So we have a lot of the insufferable traits of the Gen Zs, but we just didn't have this entire online childhood. She hasn't been saving for a home and instead admits she was prioritizing her lifestyle. She copped a rent hike every 6 months, which is legal in Perth, and had to offer more than the asking price 3 years ago when the local rental market wasn't one of the most competitive in the country. Yes, we all know how. At Perth, you could positive gear, or in Western Australia, you could definitely positive gear in a lot of areas. Now the number of rentals in Perth is at record low. Inspections are swamped with hopeful tenants, many willing to offer more money to land a place. The option of going into another place, paying higher, competing against other people, and then in 12 or 6 months' time, the landlord turning around and saying, "Oh, we are selling too," is not ideal, she told Yahoo Finance. So I wonder, WA, it'd be that housing scheme. I mean, 10 grand isn't much of a deposit, is it? But this shows you where, if she got in, let's find out. So instead of being at the mercy of another landlord, the marketing professional decided to see if there were some sacrifices she could make to set herself up for the future, all without tapping the bank of mum and dad. Surprisingly, she could afford to buy a 2-bedroom apartment right around the corner from her old place, with sweeping views of the city for less than her old rental. And all she needed was $10,000 and some good advice to seal the deal. How did this happen? I'd really thought there were just no chance at all because I hadn't been saving for a place. But I spoke to a broker and asked, what is my shot here? They assessed my incomings and outgoings on the 18th of September and came back to me to tell me what I could afford. Then I had the keys to my new apartment on the 8th of November. That's quick. Just 10 grand? Come on. So, grants and schemes. So, rather than the bank of mum and dad, it was the bank of the Australian taxpayers. But I can honestly appreciate, considering what the government is hell-bent on wasting money on, I can appreciate the advantages of this. I'd still rather wonder how much she has in super, hey? Maybe that could have gotten her a bigger deposit. The number of first-home buyers entering the market is set to rise in 2024, with Resolve Finance finding 27% of young people without a home are now poised to buy. Managing Director Don Crellin said, There was one big factor influencing that shift. Recent government initiatives to facilitate home ownership are putting keys indoors where it wouldn't have otherwise been possible, he told Yahoo Finance. Yeah, let's just hope she hasn't fallen prey to one of these shared equity schemes that everyone's pushing in our government here. She's a perfect example. She works in property, but didn't know she could take advantage of multiple grants and schemes to leverage her way in. The 25-year-old chose to use money she'd put aside for a holiday to secure her future home. She really is the stereotype, isn't she? So, we had enough for the deposit plus the fees, which was around $5,000 for settlement and strata. We pretty much used every dollar we had. So if something goes wrong, she's kind of screwed. But that's the Australian way, isn't it? Just get in. Because it's costing her less than renting. And she's in there now. She not going to get kicked out every 6 months. She won't get an increase every 6 months. It'll just be the interest rate going up. You can't blame her, can you? You can't. I mean, this is another. This is why we're not going to see housing come crashing down, guys. Even a small move. If we see a 20% shave off there, people are going to be fighting to get in. Low deposits and fees slash. Brooke used a Key Start loan. There we go. An initiative supported by the WA government to help lower entry costs. Instead of a 5% deposit, she only needed 2% and saved thousands by not having to pay lenders' mortgage insurance or ongoing monthly account fees. Oh no. Here's the problem with it. This does mean there's an equity share of up to 30%, like the proposed federal Help to Buy scheme, but it lowers her monthly repayments. Oh, this is becoming all too common, this shared equity, isn't it? We're seeing proposals which are a quasi-mortgage keeper, where the government will own a share of your house to keep you paying your mortgage. We're seeing this, 30%, shared equity. And there's just going to be more calls for it, isn't it? Because all she needed was 10 grand. She didn't even save for a house. She just had 10 grand sitting there for a holiday, and that was enough to get her in. So do you think she would be voting to remove schemes like this? No chance. So she also took advantage of the first homeowner grant, which is a one-off payment from the WA government of up to $10,000. If she bought an older place, she might not be eligible, but she truly got lucky. So the government has an equity in the property, and they gave her 10 grand to get in. The place had just been renovated with new carpet, new paint, new hot water system, she said. Not only did this mean she didn't have to fix anything, it also made her eligible for the grant, which is specifically for new builds or established homes that have undergone substantial renovations. Hot water system, paint and carpet. Is that substantial renovations? Maybe it is for an apartment. She said the apartment is nicer and her mortgage repayments are lower than her rent was, putting her in a much better position than a few short months ago. This is the dream. It ticked all the boxes, she said. The view is insane. We have full city views with a balcony, which was key for us. It's open plan, which meets our needs. Where the other house, while it was lovely, was a bit disjointed. The dream apartment with a bit less eating out. So that's all it took, guys. Just a bit less eating out, a government scheme where they own 30% of your property, and another government scheme where they hand you money. You don't need to save, you don't need to sacrifice, just take that 10 grand you had sitting there for a holiday. Oh, yeah, and they let you, only needed a 2% deposit, they'll pay your mortgage lender's insurance. I mean, you're getting people in housing. This is where the government, rather than increasing supply, well, they are trying to do that in WA too, but they're throwing money at it. She said she had to offer a bit more than anticipated to secure her apartment after the unrenovated one above her sold for more than expected, pushing up the price. But she made sure she didn't overextend and kept a financial buffer for other costs like those associated with moving. Generationally, it can be hard because you want your cake and eat it too, she said. She got all these schemes. You can't be lecturing people about getting into property or making sacrifices. I thought we'd have to put a lot more money, but now we're pulling back on our spending. Not going out as much as we were, or retail shopping. It's about picking and choosing. Yeah, I can see that happening once you own your own place. It's a step in the right direction. She said there was one thing that had made the transition from renting to home ownership possible, and she'd been shouting it from the rooftops. We were going in blind, but seeking a broker meant I had someone in my corner. Okay, so this is a broker piece, which is probably some good advice, honestly. You want to talk to them. We did have to give up that money we saved for a holiday, but now we're working with the broker to see how we can achieve the next goal, what that looks like. Oh, are you kidding? They're going to buy more and more. Untenable rental market forces tenants into home ownership. Leading property expert and Domain's chief of research, Dr. Nicola Powell, predicts more tenants would be making the leap to buying a property next year, as the rental market reaches a tipping point and overextended landlords divest in early 2024. She said the pressure from record high asking rents and a frustration with a lack of control or rights would force people to start making compromises on things like location or number of bedrooms. A lot of renters have just gone, well, we need to break into the housing market or we're never going to catch up. And that's the mentality many people now have, she told Yahoo Finance. Yeah, I mean, we've discussed what I call the pillars of the housing market here in Australia, guys. You're now going to have more and more people. Well, look, WA. There's an acceptance of this shared equity scheme, and I mean, so long as people can get the government off their back, I don't blame them for taking advantage of it. Do you? If it's cheaper than bloody renting, cheaper than renting. This might not just be within cities, but more significant jumps interstate to get access. Median asking price for a unit is $380,000, considerably less than Sydney or Melbourne. This is why you could do it for so little. You still have affordable property in WA, under 400 grand. That's a mortgage, even with rates going up. A professional should be able to afford that without any stress. So, even easier if there's two of you. Or do what they do, get the boyfriend's brother living in to help pay it off. For a house, the numbers are even higher, but Powell thinks many Australian capital cities will have to start taking a visionary approach to housing. That means more high-density living, but hopefully at a more affordable rate. Yeah, I agree with that there. We're going to need to densify. But we've got the problem of the not in my backyard crowd. Let's have a bit of a chat about this one, eh? So, there you go. She did it with the help of a government scheme and another government scheme to get into property. It's just the way it is in Australia, guys. Shared equity. The government owns 30% of the property, and we've got mortgage keep on the horizon. It's being discussed. That was a joke. I guess none of us are surprised. And hey, good on her. Congratulations. She got in the market. She found a way to make it happen. Don't blame her. The only, I mean, she probably got a good, a building you want something old enough to be established so you're not going to be surprised with any issues. But then again, look at what happened with Marquee. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Mascot. So hopefully it's all good. No surprises there, and they enjoy their property. And eventually they get the government off their back. What do you reckon, guys? Would you do it for 10 grand? As always, thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.